Sergio, you could get started.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today in this presentation about Rioja and about Alcoto de Rioja. So I'm gonna divide my presentation into different parts. The first one, I'm gonna be focusing on the wine region Rioja, and I'm gonna give you a lot of information about the region. And then on the second one, I will focus on Alcoto and on what makes Alcoto so special. So without any further delays, let's get started. So talking about Rioja, first let's try to localize Rioja in the map. So here we have a map of Spain. So Rioja is located in the north of Spain. Rioja lies directly in south of Bilbao, and is Spain's North Atlantic coast, and it runs from the northwest to the southeast. The Rioja DOCA, the appellation for of Rioja, is unique in Spain in that it includes more than one political region or comunidad autónoma. It includes parts of Rioja over here. It includes parts of Navarra over here, and it includes parts of the Basque country. Let's look at Rioja, a different map. So here we have the map of Rioja. So in Rioja, from the, let me see what I here. From the westernmost town, which is Haro, to the easternmost town, which is Alfaro, there are around 60 miles. And the maximum width of the valley where grapes are grown in Rioja is about 25 miles. Also, Rioja is divided in 3 different subregions. We have here Rioja Alavesa, which lies entirely in the Basque country. We have Rioja Alta over here, which lies entirely as well, but on the Rioja Comunidad Autónoma or political province. And then we have the rechristened Oriental Rioja, which used to be the former Rioja Baja, which includes part of Rioja and Navarra. So Rioja is a historic area. The history of wine in Rioja begins in antiquity. Already in the 2nd century before Christ, the Romans established vineyards and wineries in Rioja. The tradition continued during the Middle Ages, and the 19th century was key for Rioja. There was a winemaking boom in the region. In that boom, France and especially Bordeaux have had a considerable influence in Rioja, and it's due to the fact that in 1817, the phylloxera devastated the vineyards of France, and French winemakers moved to Rioja, bringing with them the modern technology and knowledge. So we learned a lot from the French at that time. And I have to say that it was not accident that when phylloxera hit Bordeaux, that the French winemakers, they decided to come to Rioja because it was an area that offered them all the great conditions to continue producing excellent wines for, in this case, that they took to the French market. So Rioja is a valley. Rioja is, we say that it's a protected area because it's protected by several ranges of mountains. In the north, we have Sierra Cantabria, which runs along the northern border of Rioja and protects the region from the winds and from the Atlantic storms of the sea, of the Atlantic Sea, of the Cantabrico. While in the south, we have the Sierra de la Demanda range of mountains, which is going to protect the region from the extreme continental climate that we have in the Spanish Plateau, in La Meseta. So the whole area, it clearly benefits from the confluence of 2 wildly opposed climates, Atlantic and Mediterranean. In Rioja, we have an annual rainfall of a little bit over 400 liters per square meter, and we have mild temperatures. And altogether, it creates ideal conditions for grape growing. When we talk about the soils, Ebro River. So the Ebro River is the longest river in Spain. And we don't see here in the map, but the Ebro River will do like this. So what Rioja does is that it tracks the meandering course of the Ebro River as it flows to the Mediterranean Sea, to the east. The Ebro River is part of Rioja's history and identity. And in fact, also some of Riojans, they use the Ebro River as a dividing line. Some people talk about the north banks of the Ebro River. Some people talk about the south banks of the Ebro River. Talking about the soils, Rioja soils are highly suitable for quality viticulture. They have a very balanced structure with sandy, silt, and clays. They are slightly alkaline. They are poor in organic content and have moderate water availability during the summer. Altogether, the region has a diversity of soils, but the most important soils are clay limestone, which represents like 25% of the surface area. And these soils, they dominate the northern banks of the Ebro River. And then we have ferrous clays and alluvial soils. The ferrous would be like 25% and alluvial 50%. And these soils occupy the southern and eastern grounds of Rioja. Then talking about the total surface of acres planted in the region, we have 161,000. Let's go to the next one. Let's talk about the appellation of origin and some of the rules that we have to follow in Rioja. So Rioja became Spain's first DOCA in 1991. That means Denominación de Origen Calificada, Qualified Appellation of Origin. So there are like 80 different appellations of origin in Spain, but only 2 of them are qualified appellations of origin. And this is to award the regions with consistent reputation for quality. So we have Rioja, that was the first one, and then Priorat as well. So today, Rioja is probably one of the world's designations of origin that offers the most guarantees regarding the quality and authenticity of its wines. And it's one of the few that requires that all the wines have to be bottled at source. So all the wineries in the region, we are subject to some of the strictest regulations of any wine region in the world. Those regulations are coming from the regulatory board of Rioja. And these regulations these rules are to ensure the quality of our wines. So for example, in Rioja, yieldings are limited. Like we cannot produce more than 6,500 kilos per hectare for the red grapes, and for the white grapes, the maximum is 9,000 kilos per hectare. Some facts about the region. In Rioja, there are around 607 different wineries, of which 364 will include wine engine processes, Crianza, Reserva, Gran Reserva. The yearly production in Rioja varies between 280 and 300 million liters per year. 89% of the wine that is produced in Rioja will be red wine, and 6% will be white wine, and only 5% will be rosé wine. And in Rioja, we have around 1.2 million oak barrels. So the next one, I'm going to be talking about the official wine making norms in Rioja. So how do we classify our wines in the region? So in Rioja, we classify the wines depending on the aging. So we have from different tiers, which I'm going to explain right now briefly, depending on I'm going to go from less aging to more extending aging. So at the bottom of the lower tier will be what we call cosechero, joven, young wines. So any wine in Rioja that hasn't been aged in oak for 12 months will be part of this category. The next layer will be, the next tier will be Crianza. Crianza means aging, and in Rioja means 2 years of aging with a minimum of 12 months in the barrel. It is important to mention that bottle aging is not compulsory or mandatory for the Crianza category. Though at Alcoto, our Coto Crianza spends anything between 6 months and 12 months in the bottle. The next one is the Reserva. So Reserva in Rioja requires 3 years of aging between the barrels and the bottle, with a minimum of 12 months in the barrel and 6 months in the bottle. And then the last one is the Grand Reserva, which requires 5 years of aging with a minimum of 2 years in the barrel and 2 years in the bottle. Then let's talk about the official grapes in Rioja. As an introduction, Tempranillo, for example, is the dominant grape of Rioja, and it accounts for around 81% of all acres planted. Garnacha still has a significant share of the vineyards, although it has declined from its peak. The white grape Viura has also been gaining popularity and dominates white varieties in Rioja, as Tempranillo dominates the reds. And in addition, there is a renewed interest in the region for all indigenous varieties, both red and white, which some of them were lost in the last century, in the 20th century. So talking about the grapes, one of the most radical acts by the Regulatory Board of Rioja occurred back in 2008, when they approved 9 new grape varieties, something that it was last done back in 1926. So they included 6 white varieties and 3 red varieties that I'm going to explain in a few moments. So let's focus now on the red grapes. So Tempranillo. What to say about Tempranillo? Tempranillo is Rioja's lifeblood and is key to its singularity. Rioja's terroir, though is difficult and various, is perfect for Tempranillo. Just as, for example, Burgundy terroir is perfect for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. I mean, those grapes are grown in other parts of the world, but they don't have that distinctive, special something, that just speaks when you put a glass of these wines in front of you. Because when you put a glass of Tempranillo from Rioja in front of you, something happens, And all the great wine regions in the world have this, that they are associated to one grape that reaches its utmost expression in that area. And Tempranillo is the grape that in Rioja, Tempranillo in Rioja is where it reached its utmost expression. So Tempranillo is a grape that has wonderful fruit, it has earth, it has a structure, is medium weight, medium color, and is perfect for food. It's probably one of the best grapes to have with food. Tempranillo is a very versatile grape. Sometimes it can ripen towards red fruit, more into the strawberry or cherry profile, and sometimes it can ripen into more darker fruit, more ripening like plums or licorice. And Tempranillo at the same time makes excellent wines, both for immediate drinking and, of course, for extended aging. Then we have Garnacha. Garnacha, which represents like around 8% of the red grapes in Rioja, is mostly planted in the eastern part of Rioja, which is the hottest part of Rioja, the Mediterranean part of Rioja, as Garnacha is a grape that requires the heat, to ripen properly. Garnacha is an expressive variety capable of a range of styles, ranging from fragrant, fruity, light-bodied to full-bodied wines, intense wines. In Rioja, Garnacha is usually used to be blended with Tempranillo, as it complements the Tempranillo in body and in aromas. Then, talking about the flavors spectrum of the Garnacha, we have, it includes cherry, strawberry, raspberries, but it can also have some earthy textures, some spicy undertones, and some perfume aromas as well, perfume flavors. Then we have Graciano. Graciano, it is probably the most difficult grape to grow in Rioja soils, and it is due to its very long vegetative cycle. So the Graciano, it really needs to be fully ripe, with the skins just beginning to shrivel, yeah, before harvesting, because if not, it's going to add a lot of green aromas to the Tempranillo when you blend it with the Tempranillo. Graciano, to describe Graciano is a grape that has a very low pH, so that means it has a very high acidity, and it has deep purple color and spicy aromas that really makes it a great blending grape. Graciano, many blends of Rioja contains a small percentage or amount of Graciano. Normally they have less than 10%, and there are not many single varietals of Graciano. Then we have Mazuelo. So Mazuelo, it contributes, it's another blending grape in Rioja, and it contributes to the Tempranillo with acidity, tannins, and color stability. And the last one is Maturana. So Maturana was a pre-phylloxeric grape. The phylloxera in Rioja took part in the early stages of the 20th century. I think it was back in 1905, 1906. So at that time, Maturana disappeared, and then it was recently rediscovered, like in 1990, by a group of students from a local university with the help of some wineries. And there are only like 200 acres of Maturana in the whole world, and all of them are located in Rioja. So Maturana will have excellent intensity. It will bring as well a purple color and some vegetal flavors and spicy notes. So those would be the red grapes that we have in Rioja. Talking about the white grapes, until 2008, we were only allowed to produce white Rioja with these three grapes: Viura, Malvasia, and Garnacha Blanca. So it was in 2008 when the regulatory board, they opened the door, you know, for the use of new white grapes varieties in Rioja. Having said that, the queen of the white grapes in Rioja is Tempranillo by far. Viura, excuse me, Viura by far. And to describe a little bit the Viura is a high acid grape, you know, and it's very resistant to oxidation, which makes it to be a perfect grape to produce aged white wines. I know Viuras make refreshing but light, fruity wines. But when the Viura is fermented or aged in oak, it produces wines with a greater complexity and with more richness. Then we have Malvasia and Garnacha Blanca, which has a small percentage of acres are planted with these two, and they are normally blending grapes as well. And talking about the new grapes, we have Tempranillo Blanco, Maturana, Torrontés, and three non-traditional grapes like Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, and Verdejo. In fact, these three grapes are key for our white wine project, and I will explain you why when we get into Alcoto. Okay, let's move. So now let's talk a little bit. Let's start to talk with the second part of the presentation. Let's start to talk about Alcoto de Rioja. So Alcoto de Rioja was founded in 1970, which means that this year we are celebrating our 50th anniversary, which I mean, we are a relatively young company. 50 years in the wine trade is absolutely nothing. So Alcoto was founded back in 1970 and has grown from very humble beginnings to be one of the best known Rioja and Spanish producers. When we talk about the 70s, I always like to talk about the new generation of the 70s in Rioja. So in Rioja, the tradition, in very old times, the tradition in Rioja was to make a wine that we call in Spanish vino fino, which those were wines that were normally coming from a mix of grape varieties and that will be aged for a very long period of time, both in the barrel and in the bottle prior to release. The traditional Rioja wine wouldn't really be a very fruity wine, but will rather be a complex wine with a great bouquet and great expression. So going back to my points, in the 70s, there was a new generation of wineries, including Alcoto, that came up to the market with a new idea about making wines in Rioja. So wines that were much more accessible to the general public. Wines that were aged in oak, of course, because aging is important for Rioja. Well, actually, is essential to the background of Rioja. But those wines were aged for a lesser period of time and were much more focused on the fruit. Here we have some of the milestones of the short story of Alcoto, and it is so in our history from 1970 to the present days, we got to build bit by bit a major project and a very impressive brand and very impressive winery as well. Some of the main milestones of our history are in first in 1980. That's where we built our the most relevant our domestic network of distributors, which was the most relevant at the time in Spain. 1990s, the decade of the 1990s is key for us because it was the time when we started to export wines, and at that moment in time, all the most of the markets, most of the importers and distributors, they were searching for a Rioja brand, to incorporate into the portfolios. So that gave us the opportunity of partnering with excellent importers and distributors, and that has been key as well for the success of the brand. Starting in 1995, we have done a number of expansions of the winery just to keep up with the growing demand for our wines, both domestic and international demand. 2000, so we started the 21st century as Coto started as the leaders of the Rioja Crianza and Rioja Reserva category, and this is a leading position that we haven't lost until today. 2004, well, largest vineyard owner in Rioja, we purchased Los Almendros Vineyard, which I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes, which happens to be the largest vineyard in one single piece in Rioja. 2010, the first plantation of the new grape varieties, and we planted those varieties in the highest altitude vineyard in Rioja called Carbonera, that I'm going to be talking as well. 2014, we built a dedicated area in Alcoto for our white wine project. 2017, we built a winery to process the grapes in the Carbonera vineyard. And 2018, Alcoto consolidates its leader position, leading all the different categories. So the most leading the white Rioja category, the rosé category, Crianza, and Reserva. So let's talk about our philosophy, the philosophy of Alcoto. So the philosophy of Alcoto is basically, and has always been from the beginning, to deliver good wine at a very reasonable price. And at the same time, from the beginning, we have paid a lot of attention to quality. Alcoto is a very quality-driven producer. So what we have done in all these 50 years is try to produce a very consistent quality with no ups and downs. So Alcoto nowadays is the largest Rioja winery specialized in aged wines, and it's focused on quality wines, starting from Rioja Crianza and above, Reserva and Grand Reserva. Well, when I say focus on quality wines, let me explain this. So in our business, we understood from the beginning that the price and quality stability that is necessary to build a global brand in the long term is in the higher qualities. And that's why at Alcoto, we have focused on those higher qualities, starting from Crianza and above. And that's why we don't produce any entry-level red at Alcoto. So our starting point is the Crianza level. We have a very impressive white wine project. So we are the leaders of this category in Rioja, and nowadays we have like 20% market share of the total Rioja white category in the world. So it's all about being honest with the quality, producing a style of wine that people can enjoy, fruit-driven and elegant wines, and as I mentioned before, delivering consistent quality at a very great value. State-of-the-art facilities and strictest quality controls and ongoing investments in facilities and vineyards. So those are all quality-oriented investments, and just to maximize the quality of our wines in order to meet, and not only meet, but to surpass the expectations of our consumers. So in the last 25 years, we have been reinvesting an important part of our profits back into the company. First, multiplying the capacity of the winery to be able to keep up with the increasingly demand of the markets. Then renewing our old barrels constantly. Every year we renew like almost 20% of our old barrels. And then very important for us, the relevance of our own vineyards as the main source of quality in our wines. So during all this time, we have been strengthening our future qualities with more vineyards acquisitions. So let's talk about the vineyards. So in terms of vineyards, the vineyard structure in Rioja resembles more Champagne than Burgundy or Bordeaux, with way more grape growers than producers. To give you some numbers, there are around 117,000 registered plots in Rioja. Those are owned by 15,000 growers, 607 wineries, and 27 cooperatives. Out of those 161,000 acres of vineyard that we have, just over 54 of those plots, they are less than 2.47 acres in size. And only 1.52 of the total plots are larger or bigger than 12 acres. So what is in Rioja, the wineries don't own vineyards. So only 15% of the vineyards belong to the wineries and 85% to the growers. So what is a standard practice in the region is that the wineries, they buy the grapes and then they produce the wines. In the case of Alcoto, we currently have more than 2,000 acres in production. Our vineyards are across the 3 different sub-regions of Rioja, and this makes us the largest owners in Rioja, and it clearly gives us great control of the quality of the grapes that goes into our wines. So this is a very unique point of difference between Alcoto and the remaining 620-something wineries that are in Rioja. That we focus our quality, the main focus of our quality comes from our own vineyards. Talking about the vineyards, I would like to highlight 2 vineyards that are very special. Number one is the Finca Carbonera vineyard. So at the time when many major Rioja wineries were looking for other denominations of origins for their white wine projects, our technical team searched for a site within Rioja that will be perfect, to plant white wines, and that was Carbonera. In Carbonera, we have the ideal soils and climate conditions to develop our white wine project. So in Carbonera, the distinctive elements of this vineyard is, number one, we have a very markedly continental climate, which gives a signature of freshness to the wines that are made with grapes coming from this site. And then the other distinctive element is the fact that it's on its soils, which is ideally suited for white grapes. The soils are acid and stony soils that drains very well and encourage the vines, to the roots of the vine to go very deep. And also there is a layer at the bottom of clay, which facilitates the storage of water, ensuring that the grapes will ripen without any loss of freshness. So back in 2017, we inaugurated this winery over here, which is located at the heart of the vineyard. And in this winery, what we do is that we process the grapes. We don't ferment the grapes over there. The grapes are fermented at Alcoto. But what we do is once the grapes are harvested, they can arrive to this winery in less than 20 minutes. And we start to process the grapes. And then the grapes are transported to Alcoto in vehicles with temperature control and limiting the contact with the oxygen. So we make sure that that all the grapes arrives to Alcoto in pristine condition. Let me show you some pictures about the about this very impressive vineyard. Then in this vineyard, we have right now we have 225 acres planted with the 3 non-traditional white grape varieties as Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, and Verdejo, that are planted next to a small plot of Tempranillo that was planted when we acquired this vineyard. So as you can see over here, so we made a study of the adaptation of each variety. So at the lower altitudes and with better exposures, we have the late varieties like the Verdejo, and at a higher altitude with worse exposure, we have the early varieties as Chardonnay. The other vineyard that I would like to highlight is Los Almendros. Los Almendros is the largest vineyard in one single piece in Rioja. With 990 acres. Remember that only 1.52% of the vineyards in Rioja are bigger than I think it was like 20 acres. So here in Los Almendros, we have a variety of grapes. Here we have some of the pictures, like for example, these beautiful terrace vineyards of Garnacha, where we get the Garnacha for our Rosado. And here we have 680 acres planted, and we have Tempranillo, Garnacha Tinta, Graciano, Maturana, Sauvignon Blanc, and Garnacha Blanca. The Graciano from this part of Rioja is highly appreciated because the Graciano as well, as I said, it has to be very ripened before harvesting. So the heat and the condition that we have in the eastern part of Rioja, it really helps. Let's talk about the winery. So when Alcoto was founded, the winery was only the building with the number 1. So as I said, from 1995, we have made several winery expansions to be able to keep up with the increasing demand of the different markets. So we got to be a very impressive winery, and the focus is a very modern and intelligently designed winery, with the focus and emphasis is on temperature control and gentle pressing of the grapes. Then we have some of the pictures of our key people in the people that are leading some of the key departments at Alcoto. Some pictures of the facilities. So the latest technology we have at Alcoto. Then let's talk a little bit about oak aging, which is key for us. Remember that we don't produce any oak red. So all of our red wines, they spend a minimum of 12 months in the barrel. So currently at Alcoto, we have a little bit over 65,000 oak barrels. And that makes us the largest oak barrel buyer in the world. I'm talking about the wine industry, but without being the largest producer. The reason being that every year, we renew anything between 18 and 20% of our barrels. And the reason is that in Rioja, you can use a barrel for as many years as you want. But at Alcoto, if we want to deliver and produce and deliver the quality of wines and the style of wines that we produce, we have to be working with new barrels at all times. So the average age of our barrels is something about 4.5 years, which is absolutely nothing. As I said, in Rioja, there's no limitation in sense of the time that you can use your barrels. But this is another point of difference of Alcoto with another producers in the region. And to finalize the project, bottle aging in Rioja as well. So all of our facilities are temperature and humidity control, and all of our red wines, they go through a bottle aging process, starting from the crianza, which is not compulsory in Rioja, but we do it because we want to make sure that just starting with our entry level, the wine is in perfect conditions at the time that it's reached the markets and is going to be enjoyed. Going back to quality control, so at Alcoto we have one of the strictest quality controls in the whole of Europe, from the beginning, from the vineyards to the end, to the finished product, and we have the highest the highest certificates in Europe, with the IFS and BRC, which you need to have if you want to export your wines to the different countries. An iconic brand, Alcoto. So the vision is part of our philosophy, is to bring consumers around the world the experience of enjoying a great wine from Rioja at a very good price. Our values have always been excellence, leadership, and attachment to the Torah, and that's the reason why we are the largest vineyard owners in the region. Then talking about the brand itself, Alcoto is a truly global brand. The name Alcoto is short and memorable. It's easy to remember. The brand is very iconic and visual. The fact that we have the stack on the label, in all of our labels, it has helped us to build from the beginning a visual brand. Our colors, as our wine, is it is a blend of tradition and modernity. And our image is an artistic creation, and it receives the passing of the time. It's very premium as well. These are the wines that that are currently in distribution in the United States. We have a few more wines that we might be bringing to the market in the future. Talking about the Alcoto, in just 50 years have received a lot of domestic and international recognitions, getting prizes and awards from all the wine competitions around the world. And one of them that we feel very proud is this. Back in 2016, we got the Spanish Wine Producer of the Year by the International Wine Spirit Competition, which is the toughest wine competition in Europe. Talking about Alcoto has become a domestic and international benchmark for Rioja wines. We, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we are the leaders in Spain. We are the leaders in the domestic market. So we are the leader brand in value in the Spanish market. So here we have some numbers. So we lead all the different wine categories from Rioja. So in terms of the crianza, we have 7.3% market share. Reserva, we have almost 9%. Blanco, we have 20%. And Rosado, we have 7.4%. So it's very impressive. Keeping in mind that in Rioja, there are 632 wineries. And I don't know how many brands, because each winery have different brands. Talking about the international presence of Alcoto, right now our wines are in distribution in 51 countries, and in some of them we really have a very impressive market share as well. Like for example, Belgium, we have almost 37%, and in all the Scandinavian countries, Alcoto has a big presence, and we have 21% market share in Sweden, 20% in Norway, then Switzerland, Canada, and Germany, and the goal is to add the United States to this list in the future. So at Alcoto, we have to. Alcoto is, as I said, is the leader in oak age red wines, crianza and above, and is the leader as well in young whites. So our winery comprehends two main brands. First one is Alcoto. So the wines from Alcoto stand for high quality, market leading wines, white, rosé, and crianza, with a fruit forward and easy drinking style. So here we have Alcoto White, which is a blend of Viura with a small percentage of Verdejo and Sauvignon Blanc coming from the highest altitude vineyard in Rioja, the Carbonera state that we spoke about before. And we decided to enhance the quality of the Viura, adding this small percentage of the other two varieties, which are going to add freshness and aromatic intensity to the Viura. Then we have the Rosado, which is a blend of Tempranillo and Garnacha. The Garnacha coming from Los Almendros vineyard, from those vineyards planted in terraces. And this Rosado really bursts with fresh strawberry aromas. And then we have the Crianza. The Crianza is 100% Tempranillo, aged for 12 months in American oak barrels, and then is left for further aging in the bottle for anything between 6 and 12 months. And it's a very clean style of Crianza, fruity, balanced, is vibrant, and is supple. Then we have the Gothic Map range of wines. So here we have Reservas and Grand Reservas. So these wines are wines with a slightly more traditional and elegant style of Rioja. And another difference is that when we get into the Reserva and Grand Reserva level, all the grapes that we use to produce our wines are coming from our own vineyards. So are 100% estate-grown grapes. Both wines, the Reserva and the Grand Reserva, are made from a selection of the best Tempranillo grapes that we have in our company. And all of them are coming from the area of Rioja Alta. Some very old vines, some very old vineyards of starting at 30 years and up. And then we have our single vineyard, Coto Real, single estate, which is a blend of Tempranillo with a little bit of Mazuelo and a little bit of Garnacha coming from one particular vineyard called Los Cuartos Viejos in the area of Rioja Alta as well. This wine is a wine that is a little bit more, it's a more modern style of Rioja. It's a wine that has greater complexity, but with good intensity and great length. So summarizing, let me just speak about what makes El Coto special. So El Coto is actually the #1 Crianza, the #1 white, #1 Rosé, and #1 Reserva in Spain. El Coto is nowadays Spain's most sold wine brand. Always in value and not in volume. There are other wineries or groups that they sell more, but if you measure in value, we are #1. We are the global leaders in added value wines, Crianza and above. Remember, we don't produce any entry-level red. Excellent value for money wines. Very important, very consistent quality year after year. So a regular consumer of El Coto don't get any surprises, because if they know the wines, they know what they are getting when they purchase a bottle of El Coto. Very approachable, fruity, and friendly style of wines, as opposed to those very oak-dominated traditional Riojas. And very important as well, we are the largest owner of vineyards in Rioja, which really help us, to control the quality of the grapes that are going to go into our wines. Then I would like to end the presentation showing you a couple of slides. The first one is this. Remember that I said that this year we are celebrating our 50th anniversary. And to celebrate that, we are going to release our first Coto Reserva. Remember that the Reservas and Grand Reservas are under the brand of Gothic Map, but this is going to be the first Reserva from El Coto. It's going to be just a special one-time edition. And this is a wine that has some of the traditional matters of the old days connected to some of the more actual manners. So what we have done to produce this wine is that we have selected 3 of the best vineyards that we have on each of the 3 different regions of Rioja. And we have produced this beautiful wine that is a blend of Tempranillo with a little bit of Graciano. And this is a wine that we have aged in American oak barrels for 18 months, and then the wine has rested in the bottle for another 18 months. And it's a very, very premium, unique style of Reserva from Rioja, with a very beautiful as well and very premium packaging. And it's going to be available towards the end of the year here in the United States. I think that as of October will be available. And the last thing I want to show you guys is that we were delighted last year that our Gothic Map brand Reserva was recognized in Decanter, one of the most prestigious wine competitions, and it received the highest honor that you can receive in this competition, which is the recognition to be the best in show wine. So in this edition, there were like 16,500 wines that were submitted to this competition, and only 50 of them got this recognition. And Alcoto, the Mat Grand Reserva, was the only one from Rioja, and we feel really proud about this. And this is the current vintage available here in the United States. So if you have the opportunity, I highly recommend you to get your hands on one of these beautiful bottles. So after saying this, I think that the only thing left for me to say is thank you very much to everybody for listening to me today and for accompanying me in this trip through Rioja and through Alcoto. So I think that if we have time, maybe if you guys have any questions.
So we have a few questions on the chat, Sergio.
I don't know why, but I can see the chat.
I can read them to you.
Okay.
So Brent asked, how did the Tempranillo Blanco come to be? Was it an unintentional mutation?
Yeah, it was a mutation of the Tempranillo Red, yes.
George is asking, how many barrels are in your cellar?
Right now, we have a little bit over 65,000 barrels. All of them are 225 liters. So between 65 and 70,000 barrels, which is, it's a lot.
Yeah. Mark Stotland, when added to the Tempranillo blend, what does the Garnacha add? Is it Carbonera, dry farmed with a clay subsoil?
So the first question was talking about the Garnacha. What does the Garnacha give to or brings to the blend with the Tempranillo?
Yes.
So the Garnacha is going to complement the Tempranillo in aromas and color. You have the skin of the Tempranillo is not very thick, so it has medium color. So that's why Tempranillo is blended with other grapes, that can bring some color to the blend. So it will be basically aromas, intensity, aromatic intensity, and color.
Guys, if you want to ask questions and if you want to raise your hand, unmute yourself, you can feel free to do that as well.
Maybe if I stop sharing, I will see you guys. Okay, now I can see myself. Okay.
Everyone is hiding still, Sergio. There you go, bro.
Okay, someone is coming. Okay, I know these guys.
Hey, Sergio, I have a question as far as, I guess, how do you like living in the U.S. now? And
well, I like the U.S., but to be honest, I'm not having the opportunity, to enjoy when I'm my time in the U.S. I spend most of my time at home since March. So until March, it was great. From March, but hopefully, as of August or September, we will be able, to go back to resume our normal activity or close to our normal activities.
Right.
Sergio, Tony on the chat asked a question. He's saying, what's the average age of the Garnacha? Do you have very old vines as well?
From Garnacha, I would say that we have vines in the eastern part of Rioja that might be maybe 20 to 25 years of age. But there are much more older vines in the region. As there was a moment in time where Garnacha had more acres planted than Tempranillo, but then that changed. As I said, Garnacha has lost some of the vineyards. They have been ripped up and they have been replanted with Tempranillo. But in the old days, there were much more. But some of the Garnachas that are in Rioja, they are quite old.
George, you could unmute yourself and there you go. All right, so George sent a question. He's saying, are you also battling 100% Sauvignon Blanc?
This is something that we are starting to do, okay? But the point is that we want to keep some of the authenticity of Rioja, blending, using those grapes to complement the Viura. But to answer your question, yes, we are doing that, and we are doing as well, and we have in the market 100% Chardonnay. I have to say that this is something that it was not allowed at first when the new grapes were authorized in Rioja, because from the period from 2008 to 2014 and 15, in order to protect the local grapes, we were only allowed to use 49% of the new grapes. So 51% had to be or Viura or Malvasia and white Garnacha, or a blend of the three. But since 2014 or 15, I don't remember the date, we are allowed to produce a single varietal with the new grapes. Do you guys believe that 100% Sauvignon Blanc from Rioja will be interesting for the US?
Sorry, Bruns sent another question. I was reading and I missed what you said, Sergio.
Please.
Brunt said, I might have missed it. When you are done with the barrels, what are you doing with them?
Okay, so what we do is there's been highly demand, from whiskey producers in the last years. So we have been selling those to whiskey producers. And then there are, well, as I said, there are 600 and something wineries in Rioja. They know how we treat a barrel. So there are some small companies that to buy new barrels is a huge investment. So they rather to combine the purchasing of new barrels with barrels that have been used. And as I said, as they know the care and how we treat our barrels, they buy a lot of barrels for us as well. So we sell them as well to some of smaller producers in the region.
Priscilla, the question that you missed from Sergio was, how many pallets of Sauvignon Blanc are you bringing in for us to launch in the US?
We could talk
the question is, my question is, and this is something that I don't know. I mean, when I think about it, I mean, you can get Sauvignon Blanc from anywhere else in the world. So I don't know if a Sauvignon Blanc from Rioja will be very appealing to the U.S. consumer, or they rather, if they have to buy a white wine from Rioja, they prefer to buy, for example, a Viura, something that is local and very authentic from the region. That was my question. How do you think that the U.S. market will react until Sauvignon Blanc from Rioja?
I agree with you. I think that it's good as a complementary grape, but as a standalone, I can't imagine, unless it was very, very low price, I can't imagine it would be something that, I think you're better off with your Blanco,
I mean, the Blanco is the most sold white wine from Rioja, and it's a massive value for money. I mean, it's a wine that really over delivers. And I think that the addition of the small percentage of the two more aromatic grapes, it has really enhanced the Viura itself. So yeah.
George asked another question. Can you make racks out of your old barrels? Do you sell them if you make the racks?
No, we don't make racks. No, we don't make racks.
George, we could hear you. You're still poking on your cell phone.
Nope.
No. Okay.
We cannot even see you now. Now we can see you, but not hear you.
Yeah, no, I unmuted you, but for some reason it's not working. Keep typing. Do you see Maturana becoming more popular in Rioja as the climate continues to warm?
Well, the problem is that there are only I think it's like 80, around 250 acres of Maturana. So not many wineries, they have access to this grape. So I don't think it's gonna get more popular, to be honest. No, I don't believe. In order to have more acres of Maturana, you will have to change it for some existing vines or vineyards, because in Rioja, we are not allowed to plant more. They control that as well. So if there are 66,000, I'm talking in hectares now, 161,000 acres of vineyards in Rioja, you can plant new vineyards in Rioja, but they're not going to be within the Rioja appellation of origin. So you cannot produce Rioja wine. It won't have the quality seal of Rioja. In order to plant new vineyards in Rioja, you have to rip off some of the existing vineyards. So that's another reason why I don't think it's going to increase the Maturana surface in Rioja. And as I said, there's just a few wineries that can put their hands on Maturana grapes.
All right, guys, I think it's going to be 1 hour since we started, so we're going to let you guys go. But I just wanted to thank Sergio again. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And I also wanted to let you know that we're going to be taking a break for August, and we'll come back September sometime with new seminars. Thank you, Sergio. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And I wish you all guys a great weekend.
Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you, Sergio.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
There you go.